All right, we'll call the roll for this, what's today's date? July 15th,
15th.
meeting of the Penfield Planning Board.
Hetzke,
Here.
Bastian, Danicourt,
Here.
Knauer,
Here.
McCord,
Here.
Tidings,
Here.
Nersinger,
Here.
Valentine.
Here. Okay, I think we got minutes.
I have 2 sets for you guys. It was in your drop last week. We have these set for June 12th and June 24th. Anybody has any comments, concerns?
Can we entertain a motion to approve the first set?
Make
Make
a
a
motion
motion.
to approve.
I'll second it.
Any comments? Discussion on the minutes?
Sets for the June 12th.
June 12th?
Hetzke,
Aye.
Bastian, Danicourt,
Aye.
Knauer,
Aye.
McCord,
Aye.
Tidings.
Aye.
Okay. Second set of minutes?
Yep, the 24th. I'll make a motion to approve it. I'll second.
Any discussion, any fixes, typos? All right. Call vote?
All right, Hetzke,
Aye.
Danicourt,
Aye.
Knauer,
Aye.
McCord,
Abstain.
Tidings.
Aye. Okay.
All right. That takes care of our actual
Scheduled
business.
items. We do have another miscellaneous item this evening. We have received a request. We have for actually several years now from the Boulevard Church. It is on Dublin Road.
Across from Helmsford.
Yes. So closer to the 441 end. There's a church out there that in 2009 received approval from this board for an expansion to their existing facility. They have had internal issues within the church. There's 2 different groups, a younger group and an older group, that have actually gone to lawsuit over which direction to take the church.
So they're suing each other.
They're suing each other. So they have come diligently every year before this board and asked for an extension to keep their approval active while they still work this out. They've actually gone, I believe it's State Supreme Court, Honorable Judge Rosenbaum. They argued before him in over the winter and had closing arguments in February. They are still waiting to hear back from Judge Rosenbaum on what his decision is of which group gets leadership or role, or who wins or loses. I talked with Harb, and I won't try to butcher his last name, representing one of the groups today. He's the one we've had contact with all along. This is his email. He had previously been in contact with Katie Yearly about getting that reapproval. They've asked for an extension on it. Here it shares the dates of February 18th. That they did final briefs but haven't received a decision yet. They're asking for an annual renewal that expires in August from this board to extend that on. He's also talked to me, and I need to talk with Jeff if they can do some, as we do with other applications, as happened with Ellison Heights, some basic site plan or site improvements that can preserve their approval so they don't have to come back if this thing extends on. So they may be doing some landscape plannings or doing something not dealing with a building, but would deal with part of what their site plan approval was. So they can do some plannings or do some other things that would at least preserve and show that they've started the site plan, still working out what the building addition piece of it is, but at least that would preserve it and then preserve their site plan going forward. So
As I remember, that was for building expansion and parking lot.
correct. Yeah, they're looking to add, I believe, a portion in the back to do like a kitchen, so they can, it's an active church today. They have, full facilities now, but I think it's been growing, so they were adding a little to the back, rear of the building, and then additional parking. And I know they've had times where they've had group events, and I don't know in recent history, but at the public hearing, they'd have large events and weekends. They'd be parking on the grass route into the road. So they, understood that, so they're looking to expand their parking lot within their area. They even looked at doing some like grass mesh areas that, reinforced turf, so they don't use it every day, so it's not being left as asphalt. But understanding they may have 1 or 2 events a year that exceeds the area that they could park on that, but not rut up the lawn. So they've asked once again if this board is willing to, grant that extension. They're hoping that, once the judge, comes back with a decision, then they can decide to move forward with, one way or the other, they'll move forward with the building expansion.
It took a long time for an answer, right? It's been 5 months since they
Yeah.
met on it.
Yeah, I mean, it's taken a long time. I think internally they tried working it out. It kind of went on for years that they were kind of struggling back and forth amongst themselves. Obviously, it's now proceeded to state Supreme Court, so it's gone that long. They've spent tens of thousands of dollars and money going through this, but hopefully they'll get the issue worked out and can proceed.
Anybody have an issue with it?
I don't.
Entertain a motion to extend the approval accord.
I'll second it.
Tidings.
Okay, Hetzke,
Aye.
Danicourt,
Aye.
Canower,
Aye.
Accord,
Aye.
Tidings.
Aye.
All right. Do you have anything else, or should we go into recess until the, what I estimate? 6:38? 6:36.
Yeah, we don't have any other tabled items. We approved it at the last meeting. We can talk about, briefly discuss the August applications.
Yes.
Since we haven't had the public hearing, the board should discuss and debate the items, but we can briefly, the staff, just kind of share and highlight, here's what's coming up. We received those in your drop today. Sorry.
Now, I want to make sure everybody can make that 14th, August 14th.
We can talk about, if you want to talk about that first.
Anybody not going to, I'm not going to be here.
And Bill,
It's a
And
meeting
Bill
night.
Bastian, I don't think.
Yes, it's the second Thursday of August is our
I'm here.
normal public hearing night. I know Bill and AJ are traveling, so the other four,
I think I'm going to be here. Not sure. I'm going to be on vacation either the week before or that week. So, I'll let you know.
How
Okay.
soon?
Maybe tonight.
because I think we'd have to
If
put the
that's the case,
legal
maybe
in
we'll have to go tomorrow.
Right away.
if we're gonna move it to possibly August 7th.
You're good for the
Yeah.
14th?
If we want,
Sarah,
'cause I
you're
know,
good for the 14th?
I
We need
know,
to have a quorum, so.
yeah, I know Tuesdays have been tough for everybody.
It's a Tuesday.
No, that is
No,
a
it's a
Thursday.
It's a normal meeting.
That's the normal meeting night.
I just have a trade show in Texas that I'm exhibiting at, and
I know Bill said
I have to be.
Bill was traveling as well, so we need the other four since we're short a member.
Bill's out of the country for that.
The other option would be to move it a week earlier, and we'd have to get the legal in tomorrow for the 7th, because the zoning board is on the 21st, is the third Thursday of the month. If we don't, I don't go to a Tuesday, so Doug, as soon as you can let us know if that works for you, then
And while everyone's here,
we can talk about it.
if we need to go that route, does the 7th work?
I believe so.
Just in case.
We just have to notify the applicants and let them know that
Or
they're making a change as well.
is the 19th a possibility?
August 7th works for me.
We didn't bring up
The
the
9th.
Tuesday.
7th doesn't work for you, Bob?
No, that works for me too. I was just thinking.
Okay.
I could do the 7th, I could do the 19th.
Yeah.
Could
What you
I
thinking, Terry?
I'm actually on vacation both the 2 weeks in
do
August.
I think I'm supposed to be in Massachusetts on the 19th.
These 2 weeks or the
Yeah.
first two?
First 2 weeks.
So you'd be
The
missing.
4th and the 11th that week, so,
So you'd be missing the 14th.
well,
Okay, I will be here for the 14th.
Are you here the
then
14th?
I'll make the 14th.
Okay, so we'll just leave the 14th, leave it alone as it is right now.
That's a Thursday.
That's our normal
Yeah.
It's our
Thursday.
normal, it's how we've had it.
Okay, we'll leave it at that for now.
Okay.
Okay, well, let's overview August. Again, staff can just give an overview. We haven't had the public hearings yet, but just kind of a heads up. You received these in your drop tonight. We've seen both of these in Oh, no, you haven't seen my sketch plan, excuse me.
What is a sketch?
One is the sketch. Mobile station at 2175 Penfield Road, the southwest corner of 250-441. They are proposing to take down the existing small convenience store building that's in the middle of the canopy right now. Take that down and then move it to the back of the facility. So the bottom of your screen would be the Taco Bell property in their drive-through. And they're showing leaving the canopy where it is, leaving the curb cuts as they are today. The access to Wegmans, adding some additional parking, landscaping around the building, but moving the building to the back. That current configuration would require both a front setback, because you now have two front setbacks, one off of 250, one off of 441, and then also a rear setback to the Taco Bell rear property lines. Those would be the two setbacks requirements, just an initial review they would need. Also proposing a drive-through, but they have not identified who that tenant might be. So I don't know if they're looking at a national chain or just a
Drive-through
convenience
service,
store service.
Coffee window.
Can you zoom out so we're a little bit better? I can't figure out where the.
Corner.
Oh, okay.
So
So
Will
where-
that building be bigger than what's there today?
Yes.
Where's the existing building?
underneath.
Okay.
Yeah, the existing building is just kind of
Yeah, it juts out a little bit.
rectangular that's right under the canopy, so it's much smaller, so they take that out.
Okay.
In the initial sketch they've shown us, they're not proposing any additional pumps, so there'd be a big gap in the middle. I'm not sure if they're gonna change that
That's
after sketch
the
plan or not.
existing lot.
It's kinda hard to see.
So it's just a tiny little building in the middle.
Yeah, you can see the existing building that's there now. Then a much larger convenience store in the rear of the property. So this will be
That'll
your
be sketch?
This will be a
This
sketch
is
plan.
Does
That
that
angled
site,
thing, is that the tanks?
This?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yes.
that's the concrete pad for the tanks.
does that site have one of those trailers that's doing venting? Or am I thinking of some other?
I haven't been by to look recently, but there is one at the mobile station at Creek and Browncroft.
Right. I know
That one
there's
has one there that's a vacuum system that basically just kind of draws the air up from the ground and keeps venting it out.
Well, this
Oh.
one's an active station.
I know it is, but sometimes they do it at active stations too. I just wonder if, I don't remember.
I'd have to drive by, but you
I
know,
don't-
I think they
think
did
this
those
one
tanks
has
some
it.
time ago, didn't they? Replaced those tanks with there?
yeah, I mean,
They go there all the time.
that's a question we can
Yeah.
ask at the
Okay.
public hearing. Second one is a 3-lot subdivision and site plan on Hatch Road across from Triple Diamond Way. An existing parcel, so this is showing an existing house in the middle. It's there now, and then splitting that off. I think it's a 6+ acre overall parcel. So they're asking for the site plan and subdivision. So site plan for the 2 homes on either side, and then subdivision to split it, the existing parcel into three lots. We looked at this property, I think it came in administratively just to the north of it. Most recently was just a 2-lot site plan to the north of that. It was handled by staff too, so there was no subdivision on that piece. So there's an existing home to the south. The house that's shown to the north is the proposed house that is not built yet.
Here.
Yes, that house doesn't exist yet, but that was
That was
where-
That was part of the administrative
that's where it
review.
was approved, so that could be developed as well. There's an overall site plan showing that there's wetland limits at the south end. You can kind of see the wetland in the back. Federal wetlands, so I say it's a 6+ acre parcel, but majority of the property is in wetlands and woodlot in the rear of the parcel.
Actually,
And you can
that's
see
the
how
line.
So that whole rear part of the property is wetlands.
not all of it. There is actually upland area in the back, but you'd have to kind of go through the wetlands to get to it.
Mhm.
Some of the piece in the back is Bauman's property. Town's bought some of the development rights on that piece, so the accent, so it's not all
They
wetlands.
can't even get to their own property.
And you can walk through the wetland.
Walk,
I mean,
but
you have the
can't
rights to
develop.
walk through, you just can't develop in the wetland, but you could put a trail in there, you could access your own property. It's just, you can't
Go.
put a shed in it or clear it or... So this is your other application for August.
That's it.
Those are the two we have.
So,
This one's preliminary final, the other one's sketch.
Are we having a picnic in August?
We are. We're scheduled for August 20th, which is a Wednesday.
You can remember those changed.
So we have it reserved, sitting around the
Dish to pass
usually
list.
send out a dish to pass list. Normally I'll get the hamburgers, hot dogs, stuff like that. Maybe I'll just bring something to pass, show up 6 o'clock, and we'll have a good night.
okay,
We have to recess before the public hearing?
we might as well. We don't really have any other business to talk about.
Don't have any other table matters.
So we'll call recess until 7 o'clock when we meet again up at the dais for a public hearing.
Very nice.
'15th, 2014 meeting of the Penfield Planning Board. Like all our meetings, we will start tonight's events with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we have 2 items on tonight's agenda. The applicant for each item will get up and present their proposal to the board. Once that's completed, the board members will ask questions of the applicant, and then we open up questions to the audience. So we'd like to get some public input if possible. And once those activities are completed, we reconvene in the back of the auditorium to finish our business for the evening, and everybody's welcome to stay if they'd like. So with that, Mark, will you please read the first item?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Application number 1, Ed Martin, P.E. of LandTech Surveying and Planning, P.L.L.C., 3708 St. Paul Boulevard, Rochester, New York, 14617. On behalf of Dr. Lawrence Giangreco, requests under Article 9-9-2 of the Code, preliminary and final site plan approval for the construction of a 3,000 square foot dental office with associated improvements located at 1285 and 1289 Creek Street on a total of 1 acre. The property is now or formerly owned by Creek Street LLC and is zoned GB. Application number 14P-0014, SBL numbers 093.15-1-55 and 093.15-1-50.
Good evening. My name is Ed Martin. I'm an engineer with LandTech here tonight representing Dr. Giangreco and his application. Dr. Giangreco is in attendance in the event that you have a question that is most suited to be answered by him. When we last appeared before the board, which I believe was a couple of months ago, you granted us concept approval, and we moved forward and appeared before the Zoning Board of Appeals and obtained the required area variances. We performed soil testing on site for stormwater management, which turned out very, very good. We're able to capture all the water and maintain it on site. And we've refined our design. You'll note the architecturals to my left, and we've got some building samples here to my right. The proposal remains the same. It's a 3,000 square foot building for Dr. Giangreco to operate his dental practice in. We do propose a shared access with the existing house to the south, which is number 1289. You'll note parking to the west or to the rear of both of those buildings. 26 total spaces provided for number 1285. That includes 1 space that's within a proposed 1-stall garage, and 21 spaces for number 1289, and that also includes 2 existing spaces for the existing garage. You'll note that the parking lot for number 1289 is grayed out. We propose that to be land banked, and we ask for your approval for that, and any future applicant in need of that would be able to go ahead and construct that with a building permit. Typical utilities are available and proposed to be connected to along the road frontage of Creek Street. The existing driveway serving number 1289 will be removed and a new one reconstructed slightly north of that. We did receive comments from County DRC as well as some staff comments, and I can go through those, or I can just summarize them by saying that they're very minor. They're technical in nature, and I'm 100% confident I can resolve those with your town engineer. The County DOT has some garden variety comments regarding like the catch basin out along the road frontage. You'll note we made a great effort to maintain the buffer to the south, the tree buffer. And so with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Yeah, Ed. A couple questions, Ed. Can you, have you gone to zoning for variances?
Yes, sir, we have, and we received all of the necessary area variances.
And how many variances did you request?
I believe they totaled up to 7. Several setback variances, partly because of the unique nature of this being a general business parcel adjoining a residential property to the south. And even though some towns might consider it a pre-existing non-conforming, the ZBA thought it best to clean the record up and provide variances for those.
Okay, all your easements have been resolved, right?
I'm sorry?
Any easements you had to have resolved?
We propose a new easement, a cross-access between the two properties, so there won't be any issue with that in the future.
Okay, and you're going to have a driveway that goes into Tim Hortons. I believe you're going to make a connection there.
We do not have one. We do have an easement to provide for that. We thought it best to maintain a single access point. Dr. Giangreco's clientele tend to be elderly, and I think it would be very confusing for someone to come in and head towards Tim Hortons, but then have to turn left immediately to go into his practice. So if the conditions change in the future where the operation of this site warrants a different access, the provisions are in place for that.
Understandable. What about the any concerns with the P.L.C. report or anything like that? That they've any requests?
No, I think all the comments we're happy to satisfy. The only one that I really haven't spoken to Dr. Giangreco about is the addition of a bike rack, but I think that's pretty minor in nature.
Okay. And now with the property adjacent to it, it's vacant. What was it, a business or a home?
The existing home on 1289? Yes, sir, it's vacant at this time.
Now, right now, you're not going to use any of their property behind that home?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
What about the fence? Because I was over there actually again today. The fencing that runs along the property, you're going to take that down and clean all that up?
That has to come down. It actually bisects the proposed driveway.
Okay, so it's going to go a little bit further over closer to that building, correct?
We'll actually take it right down.
Oh, great,
Yep.
okay. Yeah, because, and there's, any plans for that building presently? No?
There are no plans at this time. He'd like to leave his options open to either use it as something to augment his current operation or to perhaps market it for some other professional use.
Okay.
What's the use of that space right now, that building?
Well, it's vacant, isn't it?
Vacant?
Yep.
Yeah. You anticipate when you're, if this gets approved, you're going to clean it up, obviously, a little bit.
Yes, sir.
It needs some work.
Yep.
You know, there's a barn behind there and things of that nature. Also, what about the landscaping in and around the application, the project, the new building and adjacent?
Yeah, we've proposed new landscaping on the south and west side of the new building, your typical commercial style, the low-lying surrounding the doors and et cetera, and a couple of trees out in the front yard. We don't currently propose anything on number 1289, but you know, I think if you thought that might clean the property up a little bit, we would certainly be happy to consider that.
Okay, you're not opposed to working with our consultant landscape consultant?
Not at all. Not at all.
Okay. What else was I going to ask you? What about the? Now you're going to have a garage in the back of the new building, right? And
Yes,
that's
sir.
for supplies, garbage. I believe I saw something.
Totes will be
Totes.
stored in there, and Dr. Giangreco's personal vehicle will be stored in there. And it also allows a dry, secure place for equipment and supplies that may come in while Dr. Giangreco is with a patient, so they can be secured.
How many doctors plan on working in that building, do we know, besides yourself?
One full-time and 2 part-time.
And what about lighting on the project?
We are limiting it to building mounted, and it shows well on the architecturals. There's 2 on either side of the front sign. There's a couple on the side of the building to light the entranceway, and then there's several along what I call the back, but it's really the front or the entryway to provide lighting throughout that portion of the parking lot.
I didn't see any cut sheets or any additional information on those. Are they like coach lights, or what do you have proposed for that?
I thought we had them on the plan, but
I see the ISO foot candle.
yeah, we provide the foot candles, but yeah, I thought we'd added to the plan, but I guess we haven't yet. Yeah, they're carriage style, village style lights that will be dark sky compliant. The architectural rendering shows them best. They're, as you mentioned, the carriage style lighting primarily. There's a couple of goosenecks along the,
Over the sign,
correct.
RLM shades?
Yep.
Okay. Didn't mean to steal your thunder.
No. I think I'm all set, right? Yeah, thank you.
I have a question. Is that the only sign proposed, the one on the very front of the building?
No, ma'am, there's going to be a monument sign that will be installed along the frontage. We've got some rough dimensions. I don't think the final details have been worked out, but I can show you a sample of what. It's pretty rudimentary, but it's basically a monument sign that will simply say Giangreco Dentistry, self-lit from the front, bottom lit, and with the address at the top. And the stone treatment at the bottom will match the stone treatment for the building itself.
What are the hours of operation for the practice?
Can you remind me of that?
Monday from 8:30 to 6, Tuesday 7:30 to 6, Wednesday.
Do you mind, Dr. Giangreco, coming up, introducing yourself, give us your, serial number, social security, all that?
Mondays from 8:30 to 6, Tuesday 7:30 to 6, Wednesday 7:30 to 5, Friday 8:30 to 4:30, and every other Saturday 9 to 1.
Thank you.
Doug?
Back to lighting a little bit. Your lighting contours show a 1/4 foot candle not too far from the building. Have you thought about any lights out in the parking lot, pole lights, something that might raise that?
We haven't. With the way the business is running right now, we're confident that the destination lighting will be enough to get the person from the parking lot into the building. We've discussed some pole-mounted lighting, and we didn't think that it was warranted at this time.
Even December 23rd at 4:30 in the afternoon?
Dr. Giangreco was mentioning that there's some overcast lighting from Tim Hortons
From next
that,
door.
that does light the area a little bit. We can also look at some different fixtures that could boost that candle power a little bit if that would make you more comfortable. We're very sensitive to most towns wanting, dark skies, so we keep it as low as possible.
You may want to consider at least running a conduit or something out to the back end of the parking lot in case there's an issue down the road.
Yeah, I kind of agree with the chairman that it might turn out that you need some extra lighting back there. I know in the past we've heard that half a foot candle in a parking lot is a good minimum to consider, and you're going to be pretty well below that. And I don't know what the overcast is from Tim Hortons. Maybe that's enough to do it.
Can we talk a little bit about that existing building? What are the plans for that? Is it going to stay vacant? Are you looking to rent it out? What's the use?
As I understand it,
It's
if
a
I
house,
misspeak,
right?
just let me know. Yeah, it's a house that has most recently been used for offices, correct? I'm not sure what the operation was, but it was something that was commercial in nature. It's vacant right now. It's my understanding that Dr. Giangreco will market that and look for appropriate suitors that would occupy it, whether it's related to his dental practice or something totally unrelated.
But probably office or medical type use?
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions from the board? Bob, do you have any?
Yes. I see you brought some materials. Were you going to review the exterior of the building and the materials?
Sure. I'll
Okay.
play the role of the architect tonight. He was planning on attending, but with the rescheduled meeting, he had a prior commitment and isn't able to attend. So we've got stone treatment through the center portion of the building facing the road. It's all going to be vinyl. The cedar shake portion of it will be in the remainder of the center of the building. The north and south portions of the building will be the smoother siding there. Of course, we've got the architectural shingles there and the white corner pieces, which is very typical for commercial construction today.
Okay.
So it's a wood frame.
Yes, sir.
Okay, any other questions from the board? I'd like to open up to the audience. Anyone here in the audience would like to speak about this application?
Thank you.
Nobody? Okay. Any other questions? Do you have any final comments? Thank you for your presentation. It was nicely done.
Thank you.
And we will call this portion of this hearing, I guess, closed. Mark, do you want to read the second application? Thanks for coming in.
Application number 2, T.Y. Lin International, 255 East Avenue, Rochester, New York, 14604. On behalf of Nicholas D'Angelo, requests under Article 3-3-10, 8-8-2, and 9-9-2 of the Code, utilizing Town Law 278 for preliminary and final cluster subdivision and site plan approval, as well as EPOD, Environmental Protection Overlay District, permit approval for the construction of an 11-lot single-family residential cluster subdivision on 13.31 acres, located at 1469 Jackson Road. The property is now or formerly owned by Nicholas D'Angelo and is zoned RR1, application 14P-0015, SBL number 109.02-1-12.1. I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Kiefer.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Robert Kiefer, a professional engineer with offices located at 255 East Avenue. Joined this evening by Nick D'Angelo, the owner of the property and also the owner of D'Angelo Builders Developers, and well known in the Penfield area for the residential projects like Allyn, Glen, and Hampstead Estates, etc. As was stated, we have a 13-acre parcel, a little bit larger than 13-acre parcel, located at 1469 Jackson Road. We're proposing to subdivide it into 11 lots for single-family residential construction and a residual parcel that would contain a stormwater feature. We were before the planning board for a conceptual review back in May. At that time, the board looked with favor upon the application. We had presented a conceptual layout for a conventional subdivision. We advocated for, and this board supported, clustering the lots under 278, allowing us to move all of the lots to the north side of the proposed road, thereby eliminating any construction that would occur, any residential house construction that would occur in the adjacent area to the wetland, which is located to the south of the property. At that time, the board encouraged us to ask us to contact the Nature Conservancy. We have done that. You probably have noted on the drawings or will recall that there's an easement that exists here that allows access into properties owned by the Conservancy. It's my understanding that they do some maintenance in that area, that they mow to create meadows. We intend to continue to work with them. We have spoken with them recently. They asked about access to the lands that they previously accessed via that easement. We told them that this roadway was going to be dedicated, and we're proposing that all of the property to the south of the road become public, either by dedication to the town or donation to the Conservancy, and that we would provide a culvert through the swale so that they could access their lands easier from the public right-of-way than they could by coming in this easement. We considered the easement to be redundant, but it runs across lands that are not encumbered by the houses, so it reasonably could remain. We are going to ensure that the private drive, which serves the 3 houses in the rear, meets the emergency vehicle and fire safety requirements. We're exploring a couple different options for accomplishing that. I think that it may come down to having a wider drive for a portion off of the cul-de-sac into the rear of the property, and then providing sprinklers to the buildings. As part of the concept review, there was a question raised with regards to the need for emergency generators, electrical backup power, considering that these houses are going to have ejector sanitary sewer pumps that will share a common low-pressure force main, which will discharge to dedicated sanitary sewers further south on Jackson Road. It's certainly possible that these homeowners would want to have auxiliary power for other reasons, expensive homes, and it's becoming increasingly common to have backup generation, but it's not, in our opinion, critical from the standpoint of the ejector pumps. They have a wet well capacity to them. They have an alarm system. They would have a couple days worth of volume without electricity. So if there is no electricity in the house, they're probably doing less cooking and bathing and so forth. So I think that it's not necessary to ensure that there's going to be a sanitary problem. And it's understood that we need a special improvement district because we are proposing to do a detention pond that we would like to have maintained by the town. We're going to have a low-pressure force main, and the letter indicated that it might in fact cover the cost associated with a subdivision sign. The decision to have a subdivision sign has not been made, but if that becomes part of the project, that might be included in the special assessment. We're also showing a cul-de-sac with an island in the center. The island might be covered under that special assessment, or it may be eliminated with some direction from this board. And ultimately, we expect that there's going to be a light installed in the right-of-way at the intersection of the new street. We then resubmitted to this board for preliminary and final approval, and asked to appear before this board in July. We do appreciate the fact that you did not have a quorum on the 10th, I believe, and it's very much appreciated that you took the extra effort to reschedule in the month rather than postponing some month, and we thank you very much for that. As part of that review and approval process, we have received the Project Review Committee comments dated July 3rd. They're extensive, but they're fairly minor from our perspective. I'd be happy to go through them one by one, or during the questions and answers, you may have specific questions about one or more of the comments. We've also received the review comments from the Conservation Board. These are dated July 1. They made a number of observations with regards to what I consider to be our efforts to minimize the impacts of the proposed development on the adjacent area and to protect the wetland areas to the south to the extent possible, and to maintain the natural features on the site, the stone fencing and the hedgerows. And we think that the subdivision is going to be particularly nice because the presentation of the houses to the road, they're going to be uphill. It's a secluded area to the south and to the west. And I don't know if you've had an opportunity to walk the site, but once you pass the hedgerow, the stone hedgerow here, and go into this back meadow, it's really a very nice, pristine, beautiful location to site some houses. They raised a couple concerns. One of them was related to the demolition debris. You'll recall that this property was developed with a single-family residence, a few barn buildings, and a riding stable, and a paddock area. They were in disrepair. The majority of that material has been removed. There's going to be some continuing effort to get rid of the last of the debris associated with the demolition, and we certainly will take care of that. They indicated that the stormwater pond, which is located at this location on the site, does in fact discharge into the wetlands and into the pond within the conservancy. And I'm sure that the town will, as we have, taken great care to ensure that the quality of the water leaving our site will not have a negative effect on the quality of the water in the wetlands. We are in receipt of the review comments from Monroe County DOT. These are fairly generic. We know we have to clear the name of the street with the 911 people, and we have to protect the monuments and get the permits and add the general notes. And we believe that we can address all of these comments as part of a resubmittal to the town after tonight's meeting. With that, I'd be happy to try to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay. Doug, you want to start off?
Bob, thank you for the presentation. Very professional.
Thank you.
As usual. A couple questions about the new pond and the wetlands. Is there a connection? That's an existing pond, or is that going to be an enlarged pond, or what do you have there?
This is an existing pond.
Right, I meant the other one.
It's on other people's property, part of the Nature Conservancy. This is a stormwater feature which we are proposing to construct as part of this project. There is no pond there currently.
Okay.
We're proposing to collect our stormwater, run it via an open swale and in some instances closed piping into the pond at this location, and it would overflow at this location, and ultimately that water would join the water table within the Conservancy property.
Okay. More about this route to the Nature Conservancy property, the 1,000-acre swamp folks. Is there, so you're proposing a driveway off of the turnabout there, the cul-de-sac?
This is the easement that the Conservancy currently has. This is a pedestrian way. It's an unimproved corridor.
But they use that for access for vehicles and lawnmowers?
That they use that for access to take a tractor in with a flail mower to mow once a year or periodically.
Okay. So my question is, are they still going to be able to do that?
This can stay here. They could continue to do it the way they're doing it. We were suggesting that possibly we would put a culvert in our swale here and put earth over the top of it so that the person that wanted to access this location with some type of mechanized equipment could access it from the dedicated right-of-way and come into this area. We think we're improving the access to the site as opposed to inhibiting the access to the site.
Right. I'm just thinking maybe in the process of building that swale right along the property line, you might disturb whatever driveway is there. And I couldn't get back far enough. It was a little wet today when I walked the site to right where that is.
I don't think it is a driveway.
Okay, it's just a
field.
It's meadow.
just an open location that they can use to get through there. There's no actual driveway or,
I don't think it's improved.
okay.
I actually talked with Greg Sargis today from the Nature Conservancy. He was open to possibly modifying it. They wanted to talk to their council to make sure council was okay with using the new road and then an access off of that, but he personally said, he thought that would work, and, they just want to make sure that the access wasn't being eliminated, and I told them we'd share that with the board, and I think the board has the same concerns, if not eliminating the access to it, but if there's a way to improve it, they seem
Yeah,
like
I like the culvert
they would be
idea.
okay with it.
And the offer that was extended to them is that we would sit down and we would try to optimize the location where they would access that. We're depicting this as a non-standard right-of-way, that the width of the right-of-way here is larger than 60 feet, that we were going to extend it over to the property line and dedicate this to the town as part of the right-of-way. This parcel of property, which is 1.927 acres, we would like to dedicate to the town too. And that would mean that the Conservancy would have a significant amount of opportunity to access their property off of dedicated town lands.
Okay. I think that's it. You already answered my other couple questions.
Okay. What school district is this in? Penfield?
Mr. D'Angelo tells me that it's in the Penfield School District.
All right. Thank you. Anybody else have questions on?
Yes,
Bob?
Bob. To the north of Lot 1, there's a frame garage designated.
Yes,
Could you describe that? I assume that's associated with the property to the north?
there's a single-family residence constructed on this piece of property, and this garage serves that house.
Okay, do you know what that rear setback is on that line?
I do not know.
Okay,
Whatever that setback is, it's pre-existing non-conforming because we aren't establishing this property line. This is the property line that was established prior to our
okay,
purchase
so
of
that
the
was an
property.
existing
This is an
boundary.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
The house that existed on this parcel has been demolished.
Thank you.
Actually, I believe it was a fire exercise.
Okay. Any other questions from the board? Anyone in the audience like to speak to this application? Ma'am, if you could come up and...
May I address one question, and maybe that's...
Yes, I think the question was, are they condominiums?
The question
And
that's being posed is, are these condominiums? They are not. These are fee simple, single-family homes. We anticipate that these homes are going to be in the 400,000 plus range, similar to the houses that were built in Hampstead Estates.
Okay.
There's no attachment, there's no homeowners association, there's no condo flavor to it at all.
Okay. Sir, would you like to come up and, yeah, if you could just come up to the podium and give us your name and address for the record.
Sure. Hi, my name is Michael Piacentino. I live at 1561 Jackson Road here in Penfield.
Okay.
If I can have the same genial association between myself and the board. Bob here points out that he did a demolition of the existing property here, a fire exercise. I call it a preliminary, if you can use history as a joint, what will happen when these go in here. Because that stunk for 3 weeks. And the burn exercise was entertaining. the way these houses run, or this proposed plot runs, east to west, is on relatively virgin soil. And on virgin soil, it hasn't been compacted, dug. How deep are the cellars going to be, Bob?
If you could just.
Sure. How
ask-
deep are the cellars going to be?
That's a question that we can get answered.
Okay. Let's see, this is probably 150 yards from the only other recent development that I know of adjacent to Jackson Road. And that was an attempt at 1493 Jackson Road to put a home in. The home cellar was dug, and this is about 8 years ago, and the cellar filled up with water. The land that is being proposed for this site, for these houses, does not perk well. If you're going to have a $400,000 house, I don't think you want to have a pool in your basement, but depends on how deep the basement is. I appreciate the fact that we're going to have another dedication to Penfield, similar to what we had over here on the corner of Browncroft and Jackson Road. That was a wonderful dedication that went along the swamp. It's actually a marsh, but everybody calls it a swamp. That dedication on the south side is no more than a pencil mark. Once these houses go in, the soil will be disturbed, compacted, and form a barrier to natural flow. The outflow from these homes into a storm sewer that goes into the Nature Conservancy area will be horrendous, because people like to put grub killer on their lawn ad infinitum. Whatever goes in there will wash out into the swamp. The direction of the only outflow from the north side of the swamp is over here, and it runs from south to north. This will impact the outflow. So environmentally, I had a couple of issues. If I look at this from just a mere aesthetics, what we're going to have is another opportunity to jam up Jackson Road with more traffic. We're going to have yet another opportunity to open up more development like we have on the south end of Jackson and Browncroft. And we have a congestion problem there already. This is another mini congestion where it's going to happen. Right now, that land is a crossover for birds and ducks, coyotes and deer. That will impact the wildlife, both avian and mammalian in that area. But that doesn't stop there. When you put these houses in, and the town realizes a significant amount of tax revenue, once these houses go in, that begets the opportunity to build more houses north of it in similar fashion. And then it'll look like Webster does on the other side of Plank. I don't know if we want that here in this town. If you look at the pictures behind you, 3 or 4 of them out of the 4 depict a more rural setting. It's already zoned RR1, correct?
Yes.
It is.
How much building has gone on Jackson Road since 1960? Anybody want to tell me? With the exception of the 2 homes off of Cassidy Court, which are set approximately 500 feet back on the road, there has been no construction on the west side of Jackson Road. On the east side, we have the Chinese church. On the west side, there hasn't been any. It's not conducive to have builds over there. You're at low level. You're at the same level as you are with the swamp. The swale that you talk about is swampland. if you want to do that, that's fine. I just look at it as a major mistake. Those are my comments.
Thank you for your comments. We will have, our engineering staff will take a very good look at this and do a complete review. There are New York State stormwater laws that have been enacted that everybody has to comply with. And so all of those things will be addressed.
Excuse me, has the board been in receipt of perk tests for each one of the proposed lots?
That would be something that the, would be in the project review committee memo, and my guess would be yes, we probably have.
Okay, that's a solid maybe.
Well, I know I've seen, and it was submitted, a SWIP, a Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan for the project already, and there are some test pits that were part of that submittal. And I didn't look at all of the test pits. They were mostly sand below ground. I don't know where the water table is in relation to that, but they did do a lot of background work already for that.
I know the water table comes up into my backyard. I know that a quarter mile down the road from my home, the pit that was dug as a proposed home, as a cellar, filled up with water. You mentioned today, Doug, that you took a walk back there and things were swampy, a little bit wet.
Right. Well, we had quite a bit of rain this morning, and so the road has been dug out back there already, and that's where I was trying to walk through to get back there. And
Have you
yes,
been
there
back there
was standing
before?
water.
Had you been back there prior to?
No.
Okay. I'd suggest you go back there after we've had a few dry days and take a look. And take a short stick and poke it down 6 inches. But expensive homes, that's nice. That'll do well. Thanks, folks. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else in the audience would like to speak to this application? Anyone on the board? Bob, if you'd like to.
I'd just like to just hit on a couple of those things that were raised by the last speaker. We're sorry that the fire smoldered and it created a smell in the neighborhood. That won't reoccur. We do believe that the majority of the site, with the exception of the area where the houses and the paddocks were, is virgin soil. 48,000 years ago, there was a few hundred feet of ice there. The soils are very well compacted. We did do a series of test pits. Generally very favorable soils. We did not encounter bedrock. We did not encounter significant infiltration. We believe that we'll be able to dewater the basements with conventional dewatering systems, a sump pump, and waterproofing on the outside of the building. The stormwater, we did submit to you a stormwater pollution prevention plan. This, our water is ultimately going into the area of the 1,000-acre swamp. This water leaves the site now and goes there. It may get, if we didn't detain it in a stormwater feature, that water would get there a little quicker, but the same amount of water is going to go into the swamp. And 13 acres, the runoff from 13 acres is going to have an insignificant impact on the elevation of the water in a 1,000-acre wetland. Traffic, there will be an increase in traffic. We have 11 houses, 1.25 trips per peak hour. There will be 15 more trips off of this site during the morning rush hour. That's 1 every 4 minutes. I'm confident that there are gaps in the traffic on Jackson Road that will allow a car to enter into the stream. The project is tax positive. The number changes a little bit annually, but I think that somewhere around $250,000 single-family residential homes are tax neutral, that the taxes generated by the parcel cover the costs associated with educating the children, 2.1 children per family in that home. We're talking about houses that could be twice that amount of money. This will be tax positive for both the town and for the school district. The site is zoned R1. 1-acre lots. We were able to provide a way of providing dedicated sanitary sewers to these lots. We will not be putting in septic systems. If dedicated sanitary sewers had been there at the time that it was rezoned, it might have been rezoned to a classification that would allow a higher density. We think this is going to be a subdivision that is going to be very well received and very well presented, and we look forward to moving it ahead.
Okay, thank you. Sir, if you'd like to come up and make another statement, that's fine.
I appreciate that. Thank you for your time. Once again, Michael Piacentino. What Bob said is absolutely correct about the runoff from the development, except that now you'll have the same amount of runoff that will have household items in it, like people change their oil, gasoline, etc. Anything that you generate in your home. Wash your garage out sometime. So that's all going to go into the swamp again. It's going to go in a little faster because it's all going to be paved asphalt.
Well, actually,
No?
no. It will go into the stormwater detention facility where it will settle out before it goes into the swamp. That's where I mentioned the new laws that came into play for New York State. Correct me if I'm wrong. Anybody that's been on town engineering staff. But a lot of that is taken into consideration.
Okay. I appreciate that.
So it's not just a, no holds barred, let
Oh,
them
no,
run
of course
into the
not. I
swamp.
understand.
It's not. You may think that, but it's not that.
No, I
The
understand.
SWIP is available, sir, if you'd like to contact me or my office. We'd be glad to share a copy with it.
I was
with you
looking
if
at
you'd
some
like
of the
to take-
GIS data a while ago when I noticed that there was going to be development over there.
Okay. Well, all the materials are available through the planning department. If you want to, make an appointment or stop in, we'd be glad to share those with you as well.
Okay. What are we going to have for noise pollution and light pollution? Are we going to have lights along the road, or is it going to be just house lights?
My guess would be there will be a light at the intersection, probably no street lights on the roadway, and residential lights. And you're also welcome to purchase the property, maybe.
Are you being facetious, or
No,
are you?
no, I'm actually not, because America is at least the last I knew, it was a property rights country, and that's one of the things that founded our nation. And everybody has a right within certain laws, as long as they follow the rule of law, and that's what this board is charged to do, to make sure that subdivisions and site plans are reviewed properly and treated in accordance with our town codes, which is what we are doing. And progress happens. You may not call it progress, but people do have a right that the land is zoned so that somebody can build houses there. And someone else, if they outbid the builder, could have, or maybe still could, buy that property and not build houses there. That's my point.
I understand. Now, thank you. All done. Won't take any more of your time. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else care to comment? Anybody else from the board?
Nope.
All right, we will call this hearing closed and reconvene in the back of the auditorium.
Thank you again.
Thank you for your presentation. All right, let's wrap this sucker up.
Start with our first application.
Yes. Do we have a, we have the draft templates in the drop?
We put a draft template in your drop on Fridays, we typically do, for this project and the second one. Board's thoughts on presentations, concerns, issues?
I agree with the comment on the lighting in the back of that lot, if not just for a safety issue. Because the fall off even on the sidewalk is a 1/4 foot candles off that building. And it may be true that Tim Hortons, there's some light coming over
be
from
spill
that
light,
site,
for sure.
spill light, but that's not a guarantee.
We even think of plows and everything, everyone that has to access that land, right? So, the parking area.
Right, and
Well,
even
it's mostly
someone
the
walking,
pedestrians though, the
Yeah.
plows have lights.
yeah,
you know.
walking
Yeah,
through the
but
parking
still.
lot at night.
Employee safety.
Right.
And you said just seeing the boundary of the pavement as well.
Yeah, just
So the board
Like
would
you
like,
Yes.
said,
Safety.
4:30 in December.
board would like to see obviously the cut sheets of the existing lights.
Yeah.
The board also like to see, I mean, not requirement of parking lot lights, but at least maybe.
I think it's a good
lighting
idea to
plan.
get conduit out there, so that if in the future it turns out that, boy, we need a couple poles, there's already something run,
A spot to go off.
so that it's not digging up the parking lot to do so. My property where my building we don't have any lights outside, and we're in the lighting business, imagine that. But we get spill light from the neighbors, and it's enough for us to see. I go back and forth on, well, do we need it, do we not need it? And, coming in at night, it's darker, but I can see enough to navigate through. So I understand the point, but I still think that it's prudent to at least prepare for it, if not, put something up.
What's the board's thoughts on architecture of the building?
I thought it was good.
I like the overall look.
Yeah,
I think it'll fit well there.
yeah, I think they'll do a nice job there.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a GB zone, but it is, I mean, you jump right to R120 just south of the existing building, just to the south of that.
Right.
I'm trying to see what the pole lights are now. And
Yeah, there's one there.
here's one. There's
I
two.
think, and then just
There's one across,
by
That's
one.
a shadow.
right there is one
There's
right there.
three. But
Nothing
I
along
don't see anything along this, which is the closest thing to their parking lot.
And they could have building mounted lights that are casting off, and then you have Sunrise Plaza, which is directly behind it, that
Right.
probably has some
There's one.
lighting along the back of their parcel. Building mounted lights.
I'm thinking there might not be a lot of light back there. Do we have any commercial requirements for lighting?
We don't set a minimum. Our biggest thing up to date has been overcast. We don't allow
Glare.
wall packs, floodlights out on the
Right.
neighboring property. So most
Usually you don't even have to think about it because people, the
our
developer
typical concern
wants,
is overlight.
right, more lighting
of it.
rather than less
If
lighting.
somebody's asking for less lighting, typically, most of the board's concern is safety, for employees and stuff like that. I would think the applicant would want the same. So I think, obviously if it's underlit, they would look to increase it. So I think, requiring or at least asking them to put in some additional conduit or, take a look at, the lighting in the back for safety, I think is, the valid comment. We can either put in a table and resolution if the board would like to do that, or if the board's in a position that, you want to look to approve it, we can make that a condition of approvals to make sure that the town engineer is satisfied with the lighting levels on it and, provide cut sheets, for that as well.
I'm good with that. As long as the rest of the board is, move them along, help these guys get started on it. As long as we can resolve that lighting issue, yeah.
I got lighting, thoughts, questions, concerns on landscaping.
about that. And get together, as long as we agree with the landscape consultant, right? We can make that a part of the, I think, actually in the resolution already. I think we've addressed that already.
What's that, providing landscaping?
Yeah, I think it said,
Make sure it's Bruce's review, if Bruce
Oh,
is satisfied
okay.
with the
yeah.
landscaping that's provided.
Okay.
That could be a condition of approval.
Those two trees on the smaller ones, they look like
They're
spruce,
huge.
They're gone.
They're gone.
And then,
The
showing two
existing,
big deciduous trees in the front.
existing fence is
Those
going to
are
be
new.
taken down, but they're preserving the buffer, which would be to the south, which abuts the existing residential
Right.
property is what they're trying to preserve.
The south border there.
Yep.
Two new trees in front.
Yes.
And the two existing curb cuts will be removed and then consolidated into one curb cut between the two properties.
Basically split them as they are now.
So we would need a shared access agreement, which would be incorporated, which they're proposing across that drive, which would feed 1285 and 1289. And then I believe this board, in the discussion at sketch plan and staff has requested a cross-access easement to the Tim Hortons property. At this point in time, the Tim Hortons property really doesn't tie into anywhere. But as we've dealt with the Baytown development, there's potential for a traffic light at Sovereign Drive, which is right where the number 22 is. So if and when Mr. Seconds ever redevelops on their property, there could be potential that you could tie into Tim Hortons Drive with more of an internal access, which then could get over to Mr. Giangreco's property. So then when and if traffic becomes more hectic, you could get over to a traffic light and exit out. So I think just providing for the future for a future connection was this board's desire at sketch plan as well as staff. Also, I think the requirement of a shared parking agreement, we talked about that for the rear parking field. Right now, that existing building is vacant, but obviously Mr. Giangreco is looking to spruce that up, but then sell it or lease it at some point in the future. So having a shared parking agreement that if there's a space on this side or that side, he's showing land bank parking at this point in time, but whether the car parks one space this way or that way, should be shared between the two businesses.
Yep, so have we started writing up an approval resolution?
We put a
Yeah,
draft
okay.
template in your drop as we typically do. Just kind of going through items, we can add as conditions if the board, is looking to proceed, ahead this evening. A Part 2 AAF template, again, was in your drop as normal,
Mm-hmm.
for your consideration. Any other thoughts? Obviously, they showed the architecture, we can condition on the architecture. They've shown the colors and the samples provided this evening. Typical talk to stormwater, they do have an underground stormwater system. They've shown, the engineering department has reviewed that, provided technical comments. We would ask for an inspection easement over that, as we've done on UG and the other ones that give us the right to enter the property, make sure that it's been installed first and foremost, and then obviously being maintained in the future if it needs to be flushed out, and make sure the underground piping is functioning. Talked about architecture, landscaping, lighting. They're not proposing a dumpster enclosure. They're talking about residential toters, which we've seen with other dental type offices. If they do want to put in a dumpster enclosure, and put a condition that they'd have to come back before this board at some point in the future to cite where that would go. I know with the toters, they have medical waste, so they want to keep that contained and can't keep that outside. That needs to be, in a secure location.
Yeah,
Any other conditions, elements, concerns the board would like to incorporate into a resolution?
Robert?
No, okay.
Okay, without further ado then.
So you gotta make a motion on the EAF
I'll
first.
make
if
that
you're ready
motion
to
for the EAF, for the approval.
Need a second?
I'll second.
Okay, call the vote.
Okay, Hetzke,
Aye.
Danicourt,
Aye.
Canower,
Aye.
McCord,
Aye.
Tidings.
Aye.
Okay.
Now I'll make the the approval,
Condition upon
resolution,
incorporating
yeah.
those other
with
conditions
those
into
other
the resolution.
conditions added.
A second.
Okay, Hetzke,
Aye.
Danicourt,
Aye.
Canower,
Aye.
McCord,
Aye.
Tidings.
Aye.
Okay.
That's your approval.
I
We'll
see.
send
Good
you
luck.
once we incorporate all the items in the draft resolution, we'll send that to you along with the regulations and everything else, kind of the next steps in the process.
How many lights do you guys want? I can believe I want to say for my patients, in the dark, I can't get it, so if there's a number that you want, just tell me.
I think, weren't you saying like 0.5 foot candles on a surface?
I mean, typically, we don't like to see
Typically?
more than 1 foot off the property line, spillage into the neighboring property. You can work with the
To
town
me,
engineer to make
it-
sure
it-
that,
It looks like possibly 2 poles, one on the southwest corner and possibly one on the north side. Would do a nice job.
Will that be in your paperwork?
the condition would be typically to work with the town engineer to make sure that he's satisfied with the lighting that's on site. That can be a recommendation from the board. Ultimately, they would condition the town board's signature, or excuse me, the town engineer's signature signing off on the plans shows that he's satisfied with the lighting plans. That would be a typical condition of the board.
Yeah.
Right, great. Thanks, guys.
Thanks. Thank you.
Good night.
Okay. Our urban suburban sprawl. Jackson Road.
The next application is 1469 Jackson Road. We included it with your drop. You'd seen it in the sketch plan, what we call a conventional plan, showing it is an RR1 district. They are proposing to build within that limits of RR1, but they're using what's called Town Law 278, as this board knows, to cluster those to be slightly smaller than that. So they're showing that they can meet an 11-lot layout under the conventional plan. So it is not, variance is necessary for that. But then clustering those, keeping the 11 lots, but just on a smaller.
The smallest lot looks like it's 3/4 of an acre.
So they're slightly under, but under Town Law 278, that's permitted under this board's purview.
So just to review, the zoning is for 1 acre lots?
Correct.
R1?
Yep. And they've provided a conventional plan and sketch, which this board reviewed. We've also included it in your materials for tonight as well. That shows that they can fit 11 homes on the house if they built 1 acre developments at a minimum for each house. They're proposing to preserve more of the wetland buffer areas, and then also that additional strip along the road, which would act as a buffer to the wetlands on the south side as well. So that takes you to, some lots are slightly under, some lots are over the 1 acre, the back of the private drive. So it's a combination between a portion of the road being a dedicated cul-de-sac, and then the rear portion would be a private drive for the 3 homes in the back.
All right.
I just had a quick question. When they say that they want to give the land to the town to maintain for that water retention area, does that go in front of the town board in order for approval on that?
Ultimately, the town board would have to accept, taking ownership of that.
Because they have to take care of it, right?
Yep, and that's also what we've done recently is the creation of a special improvement district. We create lighting districts, sidewalk districts, so the people within that development pay for the cost to maintain them or improve them in the future. What we've moved to is a special improvement district, so if you live in that neighborhood, you pay a certain amount every year. It goes within your tax bill, pays the improvements cost that then adds up over time if the pond needs to be maintained, dredged out, mowed. That fee is paid out of the neighbors that live within that development. It's not incurred by the cost of the entire town.
And the town actually does the work.
It may not be town employees. We could hire out.
Could hire out.
We facilitate it.
We would facilitate it, so we would have annual bids from landscape businesses that could go out and do it. It also allows, if one neighborhood wants a fountain in the middle of theirs, or a higher level
Lets them
of
do it.
maintenance, they
And
could
that
have
would
a
just get
fountain.
adjusted after.
So that's some of the issues we've had from other developments said, hey, we'd like a fountain in ours. right now, if we just own the pond, it's, why does this one get a fountain and this one not? You know, so creating a special improvement district, these neighbors get together and say, I don't mind the additional cost, here's what it is. You know, we would like a fountain, we want flowers, we want something else that, you know, you could pay a higher fee or a higher assessment that, you know, would allow for that. So that's why we talked about.
So that helps to build it, right, Mark? I mean, obviously, because they can walk away, give it to the town, and then the town just.
But it also protects the town.
It helps the
The town
town
isn't
and the
taking on
neighbors.
additional property. I mean, we have 100+ ponds in town we need to maintain. Mowing, making sure they're functional. I mean, first and foremost. You know,
Probably most of them aren't in special assessment districts.
They haven't been up to this point. This is something new. We did this with Sparrow Point. That was the last one that we did. You know, with the board here, that's one off of Bear Road. It's a special improvement district. So the town board has encouraged developers to look at that more, so the whole town isn't incurring the cost of these stormwater ponds, and then obviously the upcharges if people want a fountain or something else, a higher level of maintenance. The town is worried about functionality. I mean, they are stormwater ponds. They're not lakefront property, so it's meant to be wetland. It's meant to be that way for the stormwater treatment. As the one gentleman shared this evening, concerns about the runoff of people having, you know,
Contaminants.
fertilizers and stuff off their property. They're meant to be designed as a treatment unit that, one, helps settle out the sediments in there and also allows the plants to absorb the fertilizers and other things within the pond that causes treatment for it.
And protects wetlands and maybe adjacent to them.
I mean, it has a legitimate concern. So many people feel, they come up and they say, this is gonna happen, that's gonna happen. My experience has been that town staff and the engineering community actually doesn't want to pollute the world. They want to do a good job, and there are rules in place to do that, and that, by and large, it happens.
I mean, as always, this board is tasked with balancing the rights of the developer or the rights of a property owner to develop their property within the laws of New York State, the laws of the town. So, and that's always this board's challenge is you know, allowing the developer or the property owner, homeowner to develop their property as our laws allow, but you know, protecting the environment, protecting existing neighbors and residents around them.
Right.
Obviously, there were some concerns voiced about water in the basement. I know they submitted a stormwater pollution prevention plan. I know Jeff provided comments back. If this board wants the town engineer to take a closer look at those, we can have him take a closer look at those depots and the soil conditions to make sure he's happy and satisfied with that.
Was do you know how many depots were done?
I don't offhand. Typically,
Like 4 or 5.
if it would be a septic
Yeah,
system, you would have to have a depot and
Actually,
3
yeah.
perk
And
tests for each
perks.
lot.
Yeah,
Being on sewers, typically they just do a couple across the property just to
Right.
kind of validate, you know, what the groundwater level is for basements for the storm sewer system. But if it was to be a septic system, you would have to have one depot and at least 3
for the
perks per lot.
depots, I would expect they distributed them, you know,
There were 4.
okay.
And
Was
they
it
have-
was one all the way to the west?
Not all the way, but about 2. There's the property. There's the
Okay.
last one to the west.
Location of the cul-de-sac.
Oh, the
They
cul-de-sac.
call it right in the middle of the cul-de-sac.
I'm not familiar. Do you remember the elevation then, if you're going west from the cul-de-sac?
It gets higher, actually.
Okay.
The cul-de-sac is at a high point if you look at the grading plan.
To the high point or the low point?
High point.
The cul-de-sac's about the high point of the property, and then it starts to tapers off a little bit to the west, and then obviously
Actually, there is another hill, if you want to call it that, to the west from there. But
there's a little node or
yeah. Overall, there's about a 20-foot plus drop to from those properties to the west all the way to the pond. So to me, just looking at the grading plan, there's plenty of elevation change to get all the drainage done, including
east.
basement drainage.
Yeah.
I don't And it is sand, if you look at the,
I believe that was the developer's original thought. One, they came in with staff, and then the sketch plan was to, they debated putting the road on the north end and then having the homes on the south side. And then one was the road would be higher because the property rises as you go north. The road would be higher than the homes. Backyards would, have walkout basements, which potentially could have either drainage issues, and then you have people that would mow right up to or into the wetland area.
Right.
With fertilizer and everything else, and that would directly sheet flow in. So that was one of the original thoughts was, putting the road on the south side, the homes one sit higher on the road, on the high side of the road, so they wouldn't drain directly into it. That water could be captured, taken down the road into the stormwater facility, and also wouldn't be in somebody's backyard. As people often do is continue to mow a little further, and now they're either mowing, clearing into the wetland limits, or fertilizing right up to them. So that was kind of an initial discussion of this board again. That sketch plan is locating the road on the south side would kind of create a physical barrier that separates the stormwater, collects it, carries it down to the
278 justification.
facility, and then also adds that strip of land that adds a little bit more of a further buffer to the wetland as well. Sidewalks is one thing we haven't talked about. They are not showing them proposing them. Our code calls for sidewalks on both sides of the internal road and the Jackson Road frontage. I believe staff has recommended at least the Jackson Road frontage. There are not sidewalks directly to the south, but may in the future. I don't know if staff weighed in on internally when we've done one side internally on Sparrow Point and the frontage, and then get a waiver for the other side or not. Obviously, that would be a town board issue, but I don't know if this board has a thought or direction of support, or we'd issue a memo of support.
This isn't gonna be proposed for access and parking to the Thousand Acre Swamp at all.
I talked with Greg Sargis today from the Nature Conservancy. He said at this time they wouldn't be supportive or be looking for a second access.
Okay,
They would
so-
like to maintain their access for mowing machines, but not, parking lot
So
or
it's just
Right, not
really
walkway
for
into
access to
maintenance,
public.
maintenance access.
Yeah.
I mean, if they wanna go for a waiver, a complete waiver, for the size of this cul-de-sac, to me, it doesn't, it's not a big deal. They just pay into the fund.
What's the board's thought on internal waiver?
I'm okay with it.
Waiver Jackson Road as well? Like you said, at least the Jackson
Probably
Road
do the
frontage.
Jackson Road unless
Yeah.
unless, that's up to the town board and what the overall master sidewalk plan priority list is. If that, oh geez, we need that extra cash to build
yeah, good idea. Let's
such and
take a look.
such a street, then I'm okay with that, but
I'll look and see.
because it is a little
Where I can find them. I mean, there isn't much.
crazy when people see sidewalks going from nowhere to nowhere, which would be the case in this.
I mean, at this point right now, there is no sidewalks connecting to it.
Yeah, that's it.
And what's the likelihood that that would happen in the next 30 years? 30 years could be,
30.
for sure.
I mean, at the very least, we always take an sidewalk easement. The current sidewalks end at Penfield Center Road, so we just recently extended those from the town right to there. So they go
Oh, yeah.
past the existing ambulance center, they go all the way up to the Thousand Acre Swamps
And they're on the
southern
east
interest.
They're on the east side there.
They are on the east side currently. So they're seeking a waiver, a complete waiver. It's up to this board
Let's go
to at
back
least
up.
make a memo. It goes to the town board. The town board ultimately makes the decision, but if this board had a thought on that.
I think I'm somewhat ambivalent on it.
That's like a half mile
It's a long way.
of sidewalk there. Can we just ask them to contribute to the sidewalk fund rather than actually have them put in the sidewalk now?
I mean, ultimately, if they did get the waiver, the complete waiver, the town board would require them to pay into the fund. It's just,
Yeah, why not
was
do
this
that then?
board's recommendation to,
Yeah,
so this board's is recommending granting a full waiver and with a payment to the sidewalk fund?
Yeah.
Yeah, And it might not end up on the west side anyway, if it's already on the east side. That might make more sense when the time comes to just keep it on the east side.
Continue
No,
on.
it's not even on their property.
Yeah,
their
we
side
always
road.
take a sidewalk easement, so we'll require an easement
Yeah,
across
so
the
down the
frontage
road,
of
there's
Jackson
an
Road, so
easement.
if
Absolutely have.
100 years from now, it does necessitate it that we have the easement already.
Mhm. Okay. Anything else on this?
I don't believe they're proposing any interior lighting, just a light at the intersection.
Yeah.
That's typical, isn't it?
For large lots like that, more of estate lots, some of the smaller lot subdivisions, the developer might put in streetlights. Again, that's not required by the town to provide streetlights. Normally, it's
There aren't many out there anyways.
an amenity the developer,
Only 11
thinks
homes.
benefits his development. Sometimes
I'm sure these houses will have plenty of lights on them.
Dugway Knowles, they did a yard light on theirs, but again, that was the proposal of the developer to put kind of one of those yard
Little
carriage
pole.
lights down, kind of towards the street a little bit. But again, that wasn't a requirement of the board, it was developer proposed.
And I think once you're on Jackson, the next light you see once you're there is until the all-way stop.
Yeah,
So even the street itself.
but I mean, that may be a nice benefit to the 1,000-acre swamp and the neighboring area, that it is more rural and not, you just have some basic house lights rather than have a full lit street.
Keep it low.
So, how's everybody feel about this one?
Any street trees in the resolution, do we reference the street guideline, the tree guidelines, or I'm just concerned, should we call out the minimum caliper of those trees and type, or recommended type, or?
We do have recommended ones within our zoning, or excuse me, our
Tree policy.
design criteria,
Yeah.
in our tree policy. So our recommended types within there. Policy basically says it's minimum of 2 trees per lot or every 75 feet. So some of these bigger lots, they would require more than 2 trees per lot. Being that wide, they may be 4 trees per lot. I believe P.L.C. recommended putting them also on the south side of the road as well to kind of supplement that open space area. They were going to dedicate them to the town. It may not be some of these house frontage, but again, every 75 feet on the south side of the road, if this board again is
Additional trees? I didn't see that, but that's a great recommendation.
run it on to put trees on both sides of the road every 75 feet along
Yep.
the development on both
That'd be
sides of the
nice.
road.
Yeah.
At
And
least
have
the
we-
dedicated road.
Have we updated the tree varieties that are recommended in the guidelines? Because I know ash is still in.
We
the-
have internally, we have not officially adopted it because we've been waiting for the official update of the general code.
There's so much stuff that's waiting to be.
There is. We have to have a public hearing. It is with general code now, so they're working on it, they're formalizing it. But it can't be officially adopted until the town board hosts an official public hearing on it. So
Okay.
once the town board has a public hearing on it, they go through, we've been going with them all along, do an update until
And using the
we have a public
landscape
hearing
design
and we can adopt new
So-
rules and regulations.
Can we, for this project, can we just tell them the tree species would be approved, as approved by the,
Landscape consultant.
yeah,
Yeah, or the board.
Okay.
probably native species would be better,
Okay.
because we're right next to the
A lot of species.
swamp, and a lot of different species, native species.
We want to see a planning plan for the pond. We should see a landscape plan for the pond and what plant species they're putting in there.
I think so.
Approval of the town engineer.
I think it's all.
Landscape consultants.
Landscape consultant.
So let's keep moving. Is there a project sign out in front?
They
They
haven't
were talking about that.
proposed one. They said they may or may not. Obviously, it can be a condition of the board to bring it back if and when they want one.
Yeah.
They haven't shown anything as of yet. We just kind of said if you're looking to do one, They are doing the low flow ejector pumps will be with each house. The town would own the main line in the street. Each home individually would have it's like an E1 unit. So they would have an ejector pump that pumps from there basically because there is no gravity flow to the existing sewer, which is just past the highway garage. So they would install a low pressure sewer all along that way, and then each home would have a connection to pump into that. It would also allow for the existing homes along Jackson Road on the west side or east side, that if they wanted to connect in, they could have the right to connect in that as well. So put that up on the screen.
Proposed, very hard to see.
So the existing sanitary sewers, just past Penfield Center Road, there's a part of the stairs, the existing manhole is just past the highway garage on the west side, and then they're showing that 2-inch low pressure enforcement that runs down the road, which would allow the existing homes could tie into that as well if they wanted to.
Okay.
So then there's a force main that goes
That pushes
all the
it
way to the cul-de-sac.
Correct. That would be within the
Okay.
road right away, so that'll be owned by the town as
Yeah.
most normal sewers are, and then
Gotcha.
individual E1 unit is either located, could be just outside the front door, it's in a little vault pit there, or in the garage, or wherever they locate it. That was the staff's question and comment, just to make sure there was enough wet well volume in there. So if you do get a power outage, you're flushing the toilet, it's not going anywhere, you have a day or so that at least there's a wet well storage in there while the power's out once it comes back. A little different than your standard, you flush the toilet, it's all worked on gravity, goes out to the sewer system, works whether there's power or not.
Is there a main pump, or does each of those
Each house, is-
residential units do the job?
yes, each individual home has a low pressure force main with a check valve, so you just push into the system and then it flows down from there. This is the first of the kind we have in this town, and many other towns do it. Webster has it, other places have it. It's a proven system. It's been done, but this would be the first of its kind within the town.
And the sewer superintendent has been doing a lot of research on this application as well with other towns, reaching out to them, and he's, part of the PRC memo was several of his comments regarding this.
And that's been some of the discussion at PRC is, do we require a standardization of the pump type and style to make sure that it functions properly? So it's, well, I'm just going to get
I'll get the best one that's on
I'll
sale.
just get a sump pump style and
Right.
that'll work just as
Plumb
plumb
it
it.
in.
Plumb it in. My
Yeah.
brother-in-law knows how to plumb it, and he can do it, and just plump it in. And then obviously, if you get a call in the middle of the night, have like a data sheet in the basement that would say, call XYZ Plumbing. They understand there's a contract with the town, or they understand
Right.
these
And it
type
has to
of
be a
units. And,
specific unit.
So there's no gravity aspect to this at all,
Not until
there is
this
not, no.
until it gets all the way down to
Correct.
highway garage.
Correct. It's all just a base pressure unit.
Hmm.
So it's basically a grinder pump, so it grinds up whatever solids are in there and then just forces it into the system.
How many feet is that intersection from where it picks it up?
You're talking from the cul-de-sac out to the road, or cul-de-sac?
From
The road to the existing?
Road to the existing, yeah.
What's the
Hold on,
station?
that overall plan.
Is there a number out here that?
What was it?
13. One. Just keep going.
Yeah, I believe
750 feet is
So
a
this-
cul-de-sac road.
2,000. Oh no, it's 118. 1,300 feet.
Yeah, so they're putting in about 1,300 feet of force main down the road to sewer this subdivision.
Okay.
So is that a special district for those houses that it serves until it gets paid off?
Talked to the sewer superintendent, and he
Okay.
says that it's the similar cost to what we would normally take with a sewer under any
Okay.
development. They would install it at their cost, and then you fall under the overall sewer district fee.
Yeah.
So as everybody, they would get absolved into the sewer district number one, which is the consolidated sewer district. The sewer district then picks up all the sewers as they do flushing, maintenance,
Yeah.
It falls under typical typical assessment.
I was thinking the initial cost, or do we?
The developer is paying for all that cost, so it's not incurred by the town. Once it's in, it would be maintained as any sewer does. Town Penfield. Okay. Any other questions, concerns? Obviously, house type style is not under the purview of the
Right.
board. Number of
You all
lots,
ready to
we
go
talked
on
about
this,
that.
guys?
Not really, we haven't worked up approval yet.
We can provide these tabling items here, and then if the board wants to direct us to create a template for the next meeting, we can do that.
Yep.
I'm good with that.
Okay, so I got the sidewalk waiver item, we'll have to go to the town board for that. I'll direct the memo. We'll add the tabling items about the trees along the road, planning plan for the pond, and obviously the special improvement district items.
Lighting, our support for lighting, I don't need to know for that.
We're proposing a light at the intersection, but I think the board is
We're happy with that.
And then obviously the landscaping consult, have him review the trees and the planning plan for the pond. I'd also like to have the town engineer to look, make sure he's happy with the groundwater elevations and review the deep holes and the stormwater pollution for
depth
the
of
pond.
basements, all the things that the
He's talking about a culvert,
Santino brought up.
a culvert in connection to the 1,000 Acre Swamp property, but he's not showing it on the plan yet, so that needs to go on there.
Yep, and I had a brief conversation with Greg Sargis today, representing Nature Conservancy. He said he wanted to talk to the attorneys, make sure that they were happy with moving the easement, but he personally said he seemed fine with, if the easement went over the road dedication and then came off the end. They were happy to have it improved. Right now, they're kind of just going through a field. So if you could use the physical roadway and then drive off the side, they could give them a little gravel spot, at least you're not dragging mud on the road, and then
Right.
drive off there, and then Bob can detail
Bob
that
said
out.
he's happy just leaving the easement there anyway. They're not talking about removing the easement.
Right.
Yeah, they could leave it both ways, so.
But he wants to add the culvert driveway, and maybe we ought to get a letter from Nature Conservancy that's.
Which we can work with Bob to have him show that in between now and the next meeting.
Yeah.
Have him take a look at that.
Should we get a letter though from Nature Conservancy saying that's fine with us?
Yep.
Works for us.
Okay.
Good.
Anything else? Any other items for the tabling?
The DEC and the wetlands issue, how do we?
They're copying as part of the Monmouth County review process, so they've got a copy of the plans.
We don't have their comments back yet?
Yep.
Our county comments came back.
Okay.
So they're an involved agency as part of that Monmouth County
And it's
39M review.
Do you want to entertain a tabling resolution for this?
I can
Got
do
those in the drop on the 11th.
So, motion,
that. Motion to table?
second?
A second.
Roseanne, she gets it this time.
Okay. Hetzke,
Aye.
Danicourt,
Aye.
Canower, McCord,
Aye.
Tidings.
Aye. Okay.
No further items for discussion for the board this evening.
All right, so I guess we will adjourn. Thank you all for coming.